Welcome to the show, Kieran.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, how have you been?
Quiet, man. Lockdown. It's been a bit of a tough time. Can't get out and shoot and whatnot, but we're hanging in there.
Right. So, how have you been keeping yourself occupied? What have you been doing during lockdown?
Lots of talking to friends, man. Lots of darkroom printing. Been trying to get in the darkroom every week, make some prints, keep those creative juices flowing. But mainly just talking to people, man. Me and Tim been talking a lot, getting ideas together, just staying in the zone for when we're free and we can shoot and get out and do things.
Right. So, tell me what's been the journey like? Where did you start? And just give us an insight about how you got started and how's it been?
Sure. I mean, I think I first bought a camera probably when I was in uni. I bought like a digital Canon 400D, something like that. Started taking photos, enjoyed it. And then my dad gave me his AE1. He had an old Canon AE1 that he bought secondhand as a teenager. So I kind of jumped into the world of film, started shooting on film. I really enjoyed the process, really enjoyed using the old camera. And it's kind of just snowballed from there. Met lots of cool people, mainly through like Tumblr and Instagram and stuff. And I've just gotten really deep into it. Started with 35 mil, started shooting a lot of travel stuff, documentary kind of stuff, just day-to-day stuff. And recently I've been like shooting 4x5 large format and taking lots of portraits, which is a new challenge. Yeah, snowballed real fast.
Right. So, are you now a full-time photographer?
No. So photography is actually not a job at all for me. I've got a 9 to 5, which I love. So photography for me is just a passion, just a hobby, something I absolutely love, but something I really don't want to make into a job. I don't want to mix business to pleasure. More power to those who do. But for me, it's just a creative outlet. It's my escape.
Why do you want to keep that separation? Why don't you want it to become a job? Because it's something that you love.
I mean, I have done paid gigs before, and it was more just the constrictions, working to a brief, having to do what someone else wants you to do, knowing you have to take photos. At the moment, it's like I take photos when I want to take photos, when I feel like taking photos. It's all on my schedule. I think it's just having control over that and doing it when you want to do it.
Right. So, why film? You started with digital and then you shifted into film. So I just want to know, like, what's your fascination with film?
I mean, starting out shooting film when I did, what is it, like 2012 or something, it's fascinating. I'm of the age where I grew up when I was younger with film. My parents were shooting on film cameras before digital was a thing. And then as I got into my teenage years and stuff, digital was coming around. And I think the whole process is fascinating. It's organic, it's hands-on, it's physical. And I enjoyed that process, and I like old things. I've got classic cars, classic motorbikes, like old watches, and just using that tactile camera where everything's buttons and it's just all manual. It's an enjoyable experience. In the process itself, I develop at home, I print at home, everything's in-house, and it just feels kind of special. It's nice having that tangible object when you shoot. I don't think it makes you a better photographer because you shoot film, but it's the process I choose and it's that I enjoy. Unfortunately, it's kind of expensive.
That was something that I wanted to touch upon because you don't have to pay for pixels, but you have to pay for your negatives for film, and it is a labor of love as well as a lot of materials that you have to buy and so on and so forth. So, how do you fund your passion?
I mean, it's like everything, right? You get a hobby and you spend your money on your hobbies. I don't drink much alcohol. I don't do other things. And you choose where you put your money. I got a good job that pays well, and it's just what I choose to spend my money on. I guess I've made it quite a bit cheaper by doing everything in-house. So I develop everything in-house. I scan in-house at home. I've got a dark room at home. So that drops the costs significantly, but it's still expensive, but pay for what you love.
Right. Yeah. From someone who has never done any kind of printing or film,
Yep.
how does one start off? Just as a total outsider, I'm asking, how does one start off in film photography? Like, is that a affordable, cheap way of getting in?
Unfortunately, nothing is cheap these days when it comes to film photography. But I mean, the easiest way would be to just pick up a secondhand camera, go to somewhere like Black and White Box, buy a roll of film, shoot that roll of film. There's plenty of guides online of how to load your camera And if you know the fundamentals of photography, about exposure and stuff, you'll be fine. It works the same as digital. Places like Black and White Box, they'll develop and scan your film, give you digital files back. I think that's the first place to start. It's a bit more expensive that way because you're paying for scanning and developing costs. But it's a good way to get a test for things and feel it to see if that's really what you want to shoot.
Right. And are you seeing a resurgence of film photography these days? When I
Oh,
know there's a lot of these younger kids are getting into the Instax cameras.
yep,
It's
yep,
kind of showing their finger to the iPhones, I suppose something. So
definitely, man.
what do you say to that?
I mean, film's made a huge comeback. It has its plus sides and its bad sides. On the plus, film's gonna be around longer. The more people shooting it, the more demand there is, the more manufacturers are gonna keep producing film, the more companies are gonna stay developing film, providing these services. On the flip side, all the cameras I would like to own one day, I can no longer afford because prices have skyrocketed. I mean, it's gotten crazy. I mean, I remember buying probably like 2012, 2013, I was buying like a roll of Kodak Tri-X for maybe $3, and now it's $12 to $14. So the price has like jumped up significantly. But I mean, it's good. It's good. The more people shooting film, the better.
Right. I was looking through your portfolio, Kieran, and one thing jumped out at me is your trip to South India.
Yes,
And I come from South India, actually. I come from Tamil Nadu. So I was curious to know how did that actually come about? Because it's totally random, right?
it is. So I went to South India, we went to Kerala for a wedding. So my girlfriend at the times, one of her friends was getting married. So we flew over, stayed there for a month. And we traveled a bit of South India. Fort Kochi, Gulam, Mannar, Tikari. Beautiful place. Beautiful
Right.
place. And we were in like kind of like the bridal party of the wedding, which was an experience in itself because there was like 3,000 people there. And there was us two white guys on stage. You're like, it was cool. It was dope. Super hospitable, lovely people. It was good fun.
Right. Tell me something about the red light feed that you've got on. It's pretty interesting. It shows people the process of printing. Is that something a bit more education that you want to kind of promote film photography? Is
I
that the
mean,
idea?
yeah, definitely. So Red Light District started like in lockdown last year. We went into lockdown, level 4 lockdown, as you'll know, and we had all the gear here to build a darkroom. And we're like, shit, why don't we just do it? Why don't we just try it? Set it up, got printing, had a whole bunch of fun. We had all this paper. We just spent night after night in the darkroom printing. And then we got Tim involved. So Tim's going deep in the darkroom. He's got his own setup at his house now. I think we just want to share it with people. It's a whole other side of analog photography that not many people explore. And it's surprisingly accessible and fun. And if you like shooting on film and you like having those physical negatives, then what's better than making a handmade print? And it's a whole new thing to learn. It's been challenging because I've never darkroom printed before, except maybe once in high school, a hell of a long time ago. And so it's a whole new learning process and it's quite challenging.
Yeah, and coming back to your photography, did you start off with as a photographer, or what was your focus when you started, and how has it evolved?
So when I first started, I was taking lots of travel photos. I went to Vietnam, rode a motorcycle around, went to India, and I was shooting a lot of 35 mil, just travel stuff, kind of not cliche travel photos, but more like documenting the culture kind of stuff. Shot a lot of landscapes back in New Zealand. And then recently, I've been shooting some like streetscapes with cars and stuff on 6x6. And in the last 2 years, I've been shooting portraits. And portraits has been something that I've always wanted to shoot, but it's always found quite challenging. So when I got the 4x5 camera, I was like, this is perfect to shoot portraits on. It's slow, it's purposeful. And I really fell in love with shooting portraits. I think shooting a person is very special and it also prints incredibly well in the darkroom. And that's kind of my focus going forward at the moment is portraits. It's really the lane that I'm in right now, really enjoying. I want to focus on that at the moment.
When you take a photograph, what are you trying to achieve? What is it that you want people to feel when they look at a portrait by Kieran Lowe?
Well, first of all, I really want to capture that person I'm shooting. I want that photo to be of themselves. I don't shoot models or anything like that. I pretty much shoot people I know, people I admire, other creatives, and I want to capture that in the photo. And I want the person that I've photographed to love that photo. I want me to capture them in a way that they're happy with, and are stoked to have that photo of. Just to make you happy, really, especially the people I'm shooting.
Is it more in an environmental portrait sort of a thing, or is it more staged?
Bit of both. Bit of both. A lot of time I just go meet up with someone at their home, shoot them in their home. But I do stage stuff as well. I've got studio lights now. I've got backdrops, and I'm trying to explore some avenues of more like set dressed kind of photography. But I try to mix it up, keep it interesting.
Right. And do you have preference for color on black and white? Because I see on your feed that you've got both, and in your color photographs, there is a certain color tone or a palette that you have. Was that a conscious choice?
I mean, a lot of that color palette is due to the film I'm shooting, which is Portrait 400. I like both. I like shooting both color and black and white. You go through phases. You take an amazing photo in black and white, and you're like, oh man, I love black and white. And you shoot a good color photo, and you feel the same. Color is just a hell of a lot more expensive to shoot in 4x5. I mean, a black and white sheet of film cost me $4, so that's $4 a photo, plus the developing costs. A color one's about $10, and then the developing cost of color is a lot more expensive on top of that as well. So you naturally kind of lean towards black and white because I've been shooting a lot, so it just financially, it makes more sense. The thing with black and white as well is you can't match film black and white on digital. In a large format black and white film photograph, it's just something different, something special. And also the fact that we can print in the darkroom with black and white. My darkroom is only set up for black and white, so that's almost a factor as well, because I can then make handmade prints from those photographs.
Yeah, take me through the process of shooting with a 4x5. How does it feel? How did you get into that? And what is involved in getting into that kind of photography?
So I always wanted to shoot 4x5 because, like, as shooting film and shooting old cameras, 4x5 was always like the top tier, the under the cloak, big camera on a tripod, the ones you saw in the old movies. It was always intriguing. So my uncle actually had a 4x5 Limhoff, and he lent it to me for a couple of months. And I bought some film, went out, had a play with it. And I was just like, you know what? I really enjoy this. It's really slow. It's really process driven. I want to do this. And so I bought my own 4x5 early last year. And I've been pretty much shooting predominantly that for the last 2 years. It's super slow. You're always on a tripod. If I go take a portrait of someone, I'll take maybe 4 sheets. So that's 4 photos I can take. The depth of field is crazy. It's slow. And shooting portraits is challenging because your subject has to stay still, because your depth of field can be so thin at like f5.6 that you need them to stay still. And there's a bit of a dance and a jig you've got to do. You open the lens, you focus, you get your exposure, close the lens, put your film in, pull the dark slide out, take the photo, dark slide back in. So it's quite a process, but I really enjoy that slowed down approach. You really think about every photo you're taking. It really feels purposeful.
Yeah, it's almost meditative when you say that.
Almost. On the early days, it was stressful. Because you're worried, like you almost need a checklist of all the steps you needed to take a photo, because you get one of those steps in the wrong order and you've just wasted a sheet of film that costs $4. So, but now I do it without thinking. You just autopilot it, and you kind of finish a shoot. And you're like, man, did I do that right? I'm not sure, but no, I'm pretty comfortable with it now, and it's good fun.
Is that why most of your portraits don't smile, because they have to stay still and it's very difficult to hold a smile for that long?
No, you see, they can actually smile because I'm still shooting at normal shutter speeds, 1/25th and up. I just tend to lean towards a more serious portrait rather than a cheesy, smiley one. That's generally what I lean towards.
Right, but is it expensive to get into a 4x5 these days, or is it do people still make new ones, or it's all secondhand old stuff?
There's still new ones. So
Okay.
it's actually surprisingly cost effective for the
Okay.
gear. It looks expensive, but I'll give you some numbers. I've bought a brand new camera just recently. It's called a Chamonix 4.5, and that was handmade. And that cost me $1,900. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not cheap, but comparative to other film cameras, well, you look at a Leica M6 now that's going for like $4,000. You look at Rolleiflexes that are $3,500, and so it's affordable for a brand new camera. A lens, I've got a couple of lenses that I've spent maybe $300 to $400 on each. Tripod, which isn't really large format specific. You can use any tripod. It's not terribly expensive to get into. It's expensive to keep up with. It's a film. A box of 25 sheets, sorry, is $100 or so. But in saying that, you shoot differently.
Right.
So like, if I was shooting 35mm, if I was shooting 120, I'd take a roll of film or two and shoot 2 rolls of film and take 30 odd or 50 odd photos. With large format, I'll take 4 photos, but the price is the same. So you just slow down your process. You take less photos. You're more accurate with it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty bang on, because when it's just pixels, you tend to shoot like a machine gun, like
Yeah.
without even thinking about what you're shooting.
No, exactly.
But this kind of slows you down because you have a finite number of shots that you can take, whether it's 12, 24, or whatever it is. So you're more careful about what you're shooting. You almost kind of curate your photographs. So you think more about what you're going to take.
Definitely. And I would go into a shoot thinking I want to get these 4 shots. So I have in my mind what I want to shoot. And then a lot of times I'll shoot a frame once, a particular pose or particular angle, I'll shoot it once and just hope that my process was correct and we're fine. That's all part of the fun. Shooting film's a gamble.
Right. And I suppose it's also interesting for people to actually being part of such a process as somebody being photographed. Unlike a digital camera, it's a bit more involved, and rather than a mirrorless camera or a DSLR.
For sure. I think people are fascinated by the large format. I've shot strangers before on it. I just ask people, can I take your portrait? Would you be interested in having a portrait? And I see the camera and they're like, what is that? You know, it's fascinating that they're bewildered by it. So it's almost like it's a whole different experience. I feel like it's a bit different to putting out a digital camera with a huge 70 to 200 lens on it. It just makes people feel a bit different. It feels more hands-on, it's more of an experience. And I think that helps as well. Relax people about seeing this cool camera and this old-timey method.
Right. So, I mean, you said you started off as a travel photographer. Are there places that like favorites for you in terms of where you shot, and are there places that you want to go and explore, or kind of types of photography you want to explore?
So yeah, I mean, as a travel photographer, it wasn't like I wasn't predominantly a travel photographer. I just shot a lot when I traveled. I went to Vietnam, and I took like 60 rolls of film and just went nuts on my motorbike. I would love to travel with a large format. I would absolutely love to travel with a large format and take portraits. And weird times, I know, but last year I was planning to go to Mongolia and traverse some of the country with either the Rolleiflex or the large format. And then I also planned to go to China. I'm half Chinese, so I wanted to kind of go to the homeland per se. And I just wanted to take portraits. I just want to take photos of interesting people. It's really challenging, and I just love a photo of a person. So
Right.
hopefully when we're allowed, I'll be back. God knows when that'll be, but I'll be back on a plane overseas, hopefully.
For a young person who's getting into film photography or photography in general,
Yep.
what will be your piece of advice?
I reckon don't get into film photography from the jump.
Okay.
I think to be a better photographer, you've just got to shoot. You've got to practice. You've got to shoot heaps. You've got to use your camera. And shooting film is not a cheap way to do that. And I think pick up a digital camera, get out, start shooting, just shoot, and then move into film if that's what you want. I think it's also important to remember that just because your photograph's taken on film doesn't make it better. Photograph's not good just because of the medium it's shot on. Don't feel like you need to shoot film to make better photographs, because it's not the case at all. But really just go shoot heaps, shoot your community, shoot stuff that's close to you. Don't follow trends. Just get amongst, you know.
Right, right, right. And who were your heroes when you started out? Who did you follow? And who are some of the contemporary photographers that you would recommend people to follow?
It's funny because my heroes starting out are now my friends today. So my heroes when I started out, it was Tumblr back then. When I was first shooting film, it was all on Tumblr. I was following photographers. Notable ones, Tim D, of course, one of my best mates. Always followed him on Tumblr. Joe Hockley. Joe was the one that pushed me into film photography and Leicas and studying the great photographers. So I'd say those people are my main inspirations at the moment. It's, you know, the people around me. And not only just photographers, but more people, just creatives that are always doing something, always working, always creating. Vanessa's another one. Vanessa's always shooting. Her work ethic's insane. I think it's good to be inspired by those in your community and around you, because the other ones that are in the same situation as you, shooting in the same environment, and it's cool to draw inspiration from your same surroundings, because it's easy to get inspired from the greats that are in New York, and it works great, no doubt. But it's nice to be inspired by people shooting in New Zealand, people who are your age with the same gear, the same skill set, same environment as you, and I think that's important.
Right. So, final question, Kieran, what next?
Just keep doing what I'm doing. I just want to keep shooting more portraits. I've got some more ideas in my head. I've got a personal project that I want to release next year, which is a little bit under the wraps that I'm trying to work on. That's it. It's a passion for me. I just want to keep doing it, keep me going, just keep shooting.
Great,
Hopefully
great.
travel. Hopefully travel soon.
So, if someone wants to come and see your work, where can they reach you? Like your Instagram, to your website?
Yep, Instagram, which is k.lowe, KDOTLOWE, or my website, which is kieranlowe.com. Should have a wide range of work there. So yeah.
All right, all right. Thanks for your time, Kieran. That was awesome. It's
Thank you,
great
bro.
to
Really
chat with
appreciate
you.
you having me on here.
No problem. Pleasure is all mine.